Oh man, I don't know why I just got nervous as it was counting down. Like, okay, now we have to start talking. What are we going to say?
We don't have much this morning.
That's the buzzer. That's the buzzer effect.
It is.
Have you ever noticed that with sports, like in basketball? It could be totally insignificant game, absurdly uneven score, but you start that countdown, 5, 4, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, is he gonna make the shot?"
Especially like the halftime buzzer. It's
Oh,
so arbitrary. You get another 20 minutes of basketball to play. But like, this is your last chance before you go into the locker room.
It can be a whole momentum shift, though, man. You hit one of those half court shots.
That's true. It's amazing. Like
everything.
A 6-point swing. Say somebody misses a 3 on one side and then the other team makes a 3. It could be the difference between going up by 10 into the locker room, going up by 3. 4.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. You're right.
You know what I was thinking about? Speaking of clocks, I looked it up. I tried to Google it, but I couldn't find a clear answer. I thought about football and how, for the most part, the clock drains during when the ball is dead. Now, I don't know if that's technically a dead ball when it's just like sitting there, hasn't been snapped. Is that dead?
Yeah.
Right.
It's a dead ball. Yeah.
So most of the clock goes away on dead balls.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's why as a kid it didn't make sense to me, like the whole thing with the clock in football, because all the other sports, you have this many minutes to play it. But so much of the clock is managed by how long do you wait to snap it and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? Isn't that odd?
It is. I think they timed it one year. Well, I heard a stat one year that the Super Bowl, which think about everything that goes into the Super Bowl. I mean, it's like the cultural, we literally use it as a symbol of the most important thing. It's like the Super Bowl of whatever sport. There's like the Super Bowl of masses. You know, there's billions and billions of dollars that go into that with millions of people that watch. Huge deal. And I think they said there were 16 minutes of live
actual
football played. Yeah. But there's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
A lot of strategy, a lot of moving pieces.
But people say baseball is boring. But I mean, if you now I only watch football on my iPad, which I can double tap between every time someone gets tackled. It's just like 15 seconds forward. And it's usually like right before he snaps it again, and then skip the commercials and then go through halftime. So I can watch a Bears game in 16 minutes because that's how much football is getting played. Maybe that's what's made me key into this fact.
Yeah.
Well, football, the clock management is part of the game, though, I would argue. Like you hear, I mean, how important clock management is between coaches or quarterbacks that are good at it. That's a whole different like mental aspect to the game.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, then soccer's the other side of it, where they just let that thing roll no matter what.
Yeah, and the clock is going up, not down in soccer.
I
don't
understand soccer at all.
And then at the end, they're just like,
there's like
it is 90.
minutes.
It's 90 minutes, but if you guys are having fun, just keep playing. It's fine.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes plus time. But then I've seen people get hurt in plus time, and it wastes all of the extra minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, you just gave extra minutes for that guy to lay on the ground. What is this? Oh, man.
That one I do not get.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my football. Even though I do like watching soccer, it can be a very beautiful sport. The movement of the ball coupled with the movement of the team that naturally creates spaces. Being in the right place before that place opens up, knowing where the right place is going to be. I love elements of sports like that.
That's a metaphor for the spiritual life right there.
Boom, baby.
Whoa.
Wow.
Just dove right in. That was natural. That was a natural transition.
I didn't know you were just going to take it right into the deep end, dude. 12 foot. Wow.
Could you imagine if we scripted something like that? How corny it would be. Okay, let's start by talking about stoppage time. Okay, and then we go into.
And then I'm gonna do some sick spiritual metaphor. Okay.
Set me up, okay? I've got an idea. Let's start talking about football. I actually have a kid. He's not a kid. He's out of college now, but he's coaching soccer. Who's part of our Samuel group, and gotten to know a little bit this year. And he
Hey, is your Samuel group? Is that like a discernment group?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Thank you. It's a once a month discernment group, and he was a player himself and trying to be a pro soccer player, and was in like the Chicago Fire farm system for youth and whatnot, and got hurt at a key time, and decided to go all in on the coaching thing, which he'd read some books and talked to some guys, and he went over to England, which is crazy. They pay their kids who they think are like phenoms to play soccer. They don't charge you to be in a traveling league. They pay you to like stop doing homework. School is not for you. You need to play soccer when you're 12, literally like that young. So they care a lot about soccer, and he went to do like a specific soccer coaching program over there, and he was talking about how much he loves what you just described, Mike, about soccer, which is like the really subtle, you're in this place at the right time, and even though you're 6 inches shorter than this guy, you jumped and got a header on this corner kick and like scored. Like you overcame nature by basically like knowledge of the game and preparation and coaching. Like that guy, by all accounts, should have beat you, or that team should have beat you, but you, because you're well coached and because you planned your strategy, overcame it. And he also talked about it was interesting about like how soccer, like the game, like all games kind of have to have integrity in order for their, like you're passing this on to the next generation, and how much, like in baseball, steroids, you just had like kind of a generation of guys that were like, who cares about like the posterity or the whatever history of this game? I can make a lot of money and I can get a million home runs if I take these drugs, even though it's unfair and it's technically against the rules. Like it just kind of, then everybody all of a sudden, the whole game kind of loses its credibility. Same thing with cycling with Lance Armstrong and all that. How everybody kind of needs to see the game as something that we're all protecting, and it's I don't know, outside of ourselves, that we didn't invent, and it'll be here after we're gone, and so we can't mess with it too much. Even though, like, I think the curveball, at first, when the guy, whoever invented the curveball, the police commissioner, the baseball commissioner was like, this is cheating. You can't do this. Is like a blemish on the integrity of baseball, that you are tricking people. And now it's so a part of the game. Obviously, so games evolve, but you can't just come in and be like, I'm just going to change it so that I win. I'm going to deflate the football. Tom Brady.
Oh, shoot, dude.
Sorry, Tom.
Went there.
Tom's a big fan. I call him Braids.
I think he'll do all right.
No, it's true, man.
I thought it was interesting.
Rob, you got any follow-on thoughts for that?
Not really. Agreed.
I'm impressed that you just intertwined like 5 different sports there.
Yeah, there was a lot. There's a lot of different sports coming in.
You started on soccer,
mm-hmm.
and then went to
baseball,
and then went into football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was thinking about basketball, because there has been in basketball, there's been a conscious effort to try and use the most high-tech video replay systems that they have. And my little brother was telling me about a moment that he saw in a basketball game where it's like two hands that were reaching out, trying to grab the ball at the same time. And one guy clearly knocked the ball out. It was just, you could see his momentum hit the ball, and it like should have been a really clear call that everybody would have seen, common sense. And they went and replayed it, and like if you super slow mode it down, it turns out that like, you know, one of the guys, he just happened to hit it like very last that was on the other team, but it was something that you could only see in super duper slow motion if you broke the play down to like this weird level of analysis.
Right.
And I don't know how I feel about this, but like it wasn't his fault. The other guy clearly knocked the ball out, but this guy ended up being the last one to touch it. And Kev, my little brother, was telling me about it, was like kind of upset about it. Because he was like, yeah, like technically he was the last one to touch the ball. But in any other time, whenever we'd be playing this game, like everyone would have made that call the totally opposite way. And so although it's not like technically correct, I think it rubbed him the wrong way because it got in with like the spirit of the flow and the motion of the game, because they had to break it down into such a minute analytical detail that, I don't know, it kind of felt like one of those moments where he was like, no, this is kind of like changing the game. This isn't actually adding to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so
this
then
isn't
you
helping the refs. This is like replacing them with robots.
Yeah, which I know there's a whole, but that gets to the conversation of like, how do you allow a thing to propagate correctly, develop well and organically,
like
but
the curveball,
not change the game?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, it makes me think of, what do you think of that? Like take baseball. It's definitely been floated to like get rid of the home plate umpire. Just have like an automated box, ball strike, no arguments.
My initial reaction, which is what we should go with, is that it sucks.
I know, it does. It does. I agree.
Does it? I think it does.
It totally does.
But I don't know, but I couldn't tell you why.
Yeah, because there's something like the analytical side, that story from the basketball game. There's something in me of like, well, as long as it's fair for both sides, like it would have gone the same way for the other team had it been reversed, then that just is what it is. Like you have to have rules, and that's how it goes. So there's a fairness in play there. But I don't know. Yeah. To the question of like, but when do you just lose the essence of the game, of like the pace and the flow, how it's coached in a lot of ways, think about like no umpires, just how much psychology those managers put into messing with those umps and getting after them to try to get the next call. I don't know what the line is.
Yeah, it's true. I think that those games need to be managed and ruled on by people, so that it's people watching people, because you're essentially enforcing a law. I mean, it would be like if we had robot policemen. Again, that's really making a big jump.
This is the movie Chappie, which I've discussed here. It's police robots.
It's a movie, RoboCop. Dude, RoboCop.
Oh, man.
But you need... There has to be a human element in every facet of the game in order to protect the integrity of the game. And I won't lie, I do think about the liturgy. Like whenever we do talk about group participation and following set rules for a directed aim and the goal of a community, and there are things that we have to follow and instructions, and it's for the goodness of the game, and what's the way to properly hand it on to propagate what we have, but allow it to develop organically without it getting manufactured and losing the essence of what it is. I think those are all the same questions.
Yeah.
This reminds me of
No robot priests.
No Robot Priests. And if there's more there, we can talk about it. But it reminds me of, I think I preached on this maybe at All Saints Day last year. And I learned about this. It was from one of those 30 for 30 shorts that are like 15 minutes. And it was about what was the name? A Sports Illustrated article on April Fool's Day in like the 80s. I think the guy's name was like Sid Finch or something.
Sid Finch. He threw 116-mile-an-hour fastball or something like that.
No. It was, they made up this whole story. They said he was from Tibet, and they were the Mets. They had the Mets in on it, and they were saying that he could throw 60 mile per hour fastball. But like the author that wrote the article was like a legit journalist, so people were losing their minds over this like April Fool's Day article. And it turned out to be some like junior high like science teacher that just happened to be like 6'4", but like super skinny and just like a big kind of lanky guy. And he might have known the author. And they literally he got to go to practice a day with the Mets, and they had like tarps up, and they like got all the camera angles to try to get glimpses of him. But anyway, it was, I used that talking about like, there was something like that reaction of people is very natural in a way, because pretty much what they were claiming with a legit journalist was this guy, like in the rules of the game, has figured out a way that will change it like completely. I mean, if you jump from 105 to 160, like it's obviously inhuman, but just the idea like causes that type of reaction. But I use that as a framework of like, that's like a way to think about, at least in my brain, kind of what the Saints did is like they're within the framework of the game, and like this growth in holiness and like a reception towards divine revelation in their life. And they don't jump from like 105 to 160 miles an hour, but they do figure out a way to like improve it and make it evolve and like make the game itself better then. I don't know. I just thought of that, and it was a super funny Sports Illustrated story.
Sid Finch, I just looked it up. It was 168.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking something similar, Rob, about the human scale. This phrase I've brought up a lot, but that things need to be on a human scale. Otherwise you feel kind of like alienated from them. So like cities where the buildings are all, there's no place for you to encounter them face to face. There's like, a lot of modern architecture, you don't know where the door is. It's just kind of like weird steel and glass or oddly shaped. Same thing with, everything in our life, in order to feel kind of connected and in communion with it, has to be on the same like size and tempo and whatnot of like human experience. So like the basketball replay, no one sees at that slow-mo rate. We're like playing the game and living our lives and enjoying it at this like 1 second per second kind of human perception level. And I think the majority of us, when we say like that guy hit it out of bounds, but actually technically, if you were to be like a bug, on the ball and like experience time and space this way, this is the actual fact. And it's like, it's imposing something that you need the aid of technology and stuff to even know is the truth. So it's like kind of irrelevant. It's totally not on our human scale. But I think it also is a deeper question of like epistemology, in terms of like what is actually real.
Yeah.
Because that camera clicks at even a digital camera has a certain frame rate, And so it's capturing an image every so many nanoseconds or whatever. And in that way, it's digital. Even if it were a film camera, it'd be doing the same thing. It's like, here's an image, here's an image, here's an image. It's not an analog like how we perceive reality, which is not in pixels and not in frames. It's just this analog reality that's messy and fleshy, and can't be dissected in that way. Like you can't say this is this exact moment. So it gets back to the objectifying the subjective. That actually, like, the home plate umpire is a human subject, and that what he's trying to judge is an objective fact. So it makes sense. You'd say, well, a computer could do that better. But okay, that's fine. But baseball is not played by computers. It's played by human subjects. And that's kind of the fun of it. And a good game is one that has very concrete rules that don't have to change very often, that are, you can play a lot of different ways within this framework without compromising the integrity of the game. And baseball is like this beautiful example of that also has this maddening element of the human umpire, which is part of the game. And I just think that by saying like a computer can do it better, it's sort of like the whole artificial intelligence argument of like, well, the human brain is simply like a really advanced computer, but we could make a better one, rather than something totally other. Like the mind is not software uploaded to the hardware of your flesh, but that there's something mysterious going on that we can perceive reality from the perspective of one particular human subject. So like 30,000 people can be looking at the same play and all have a different experience of it. But that's part of the fun of being human, is that like reality is like that. And I think once you say a computer can be a better umpire, you are saying something about reality that is debatable. And I think like the people who are in favor of stuff like that and replay are saying it's not really debatable. Of course, computers are better. Well, I don't know, because reality is complicated.
I know, dude. I know it's so true. No, it's very, very true. And I think it does, a part of the temptation of having all computer strike zones, umpires, cameras in every square inch of the field so that you can know exactly what is literally happening. That's like it is a temptation that wells up out of the scientific worldview, where you're like, no, I want to know every analytical detail about everything that I'm seeing so that I can state what is objectively true. But that's not a human experience. That's not real. When it comes to how the human actually experiences the game of baseball and how we see it and feel it and play it and live it. And there is something really, really important, about, and I also want to say it's like, I'm not opposed to replay. Technology in sports has been good and can be used well. I think can be integrated well.
I think the replay, I agree. It's now it's part of the game. It's not going away. But the main thing that replay has done has given it's basically given the refs an undo button, which I think is important. I think of like that perfect game that guy had where the umpire made an obviously wrong call at first base in the 9th inning on like the last out.
Oh, that thing's heartbreaking, dude.
He didn't need replay. Like everybody saw he was wrong. You just need to be able to undo that and say like, sorry, actually he was out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, but I do think it does stem from like a type of scientism where I want to look down at an analytical perspective on things that breaks things down into like a sub-real level. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know. Rob, you got anything on that? I was going to go down a little rabbit hole, but we'll hold off.
the rabbit hole may be better than this. I don't have this exactly what I'm asking, but yeah, I want to know. Like, I'm wondering that, like, how do you define the line? Like, what are like standards or ways to this is not it, but like to get at the human. Just your comment regarding like the liturgy earlier. It was, I think, and not in the same way, of like a computer to preach a homily or whatever on that, but like, I've thought about that. Like, how far is like too far of like trying to like project out the the local liturgy that we have. I mean, that's a big COVID thing, that like everything is live streamed now, which is good and like serves its purpose. I'm all for having masses online that like the homebound can, watch and everything like that. But I don't know. There's just there's something that is like lost in that in a way too. I don't have it formulated. Help me on what I'm asking.
Well, we have there are certain parishes in the diocese that use projectors, and mine may or may not be one of those. So we'll just leave that up in the air. And there's a use of technology in a non-traditional way that like never ever in the history of Christianity have we done that. And people feel really, really strongly about it one way or the other. They say like this is absolutely essential and every parish should have one of these because it allows people to participate. It allows people to know the words of the songs, and we don't have to get out our hymnals, and the readings can be projected up there, and bilingual masses, you can have the other language that's projected up. But then there are others that would say like, no, this absolutely does harm to the liturgy because it's bringing in an external factor. And I mean, I do have an opinion on it for sure. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly why it is the case. And I think the bringing technology into the liturgy may be a better example than like the projecting it out. Because then we're just trying to display what's already taking place. But actually bringing a projector into Mass, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I got an email the other day that they're pre-recording midnight Mass, which I think they do most years here. And there was some confusion as to whether priests were welcome to concelebrate or not or whatever. And that's why I saw the email. But I thought about like, okay, so they're going to do midnight Mass on December 21st and pre-record it so that they can pipe it out at midnight on Christmas Eve. But it's a tape of, it's kind of like this podcast. Like, this is, you guys are not listening to it as we're talking. This is torn from its origins in space and time. But with the liturgy, it's kind of weird. I think it's, obviously the diocese, the archbishop says it's okay, so it's okay. But to me, that feels odd because like the liturgy is something so human, so lived, and so organic that, the liturgical seasons and times matter. Like what time of day you say Mass determines which Mass you say, whether it's Saturday after 4 p.m. or Saturday prior to 4, the church has said this is what we're all doing right now. But then you got the world turning and the sun going down at different times, and time zones is a technology. Electric lights in a church are a technology. Forced air heating, like none of that existed in the early church when the Eucharist first was instituted and being celebrated by.
Should we get rid of microphones?
Exactly. So that's all you could say that with the projector too. And I remember Cardinal George saying to somebody, I won't say who, as they were talking about like, making the argument for a more traditional liturgy, architecture, etc. And Cardinal George says, "Do you think we should get rid of electric lights?" You know, so it's very, very plain logic. But so I don't want to be totally negative on all technology, qua technology in the liturgy, because I think that argument makes no sense. But the flying buttresses of Notre Dame are a technology, and they're beautiful, you know. But I will say, like, there's the hierarchy of values. We've talked about that before too. Like participation, the projector is a good supposedly because it helps people participate, you know. And if you don't speak the language, it can be kind of like subtitles for you, and etc. So it's to help people like be more, to belong more, to be more active participants in the liturgy. So that's a value. But there's another value of just simply like being Ekklesia, called out of the world into this heavenly reality of the liturgy, participating in heaven. And I personally don't think there's going to be a lot of like blue light pixelated screens in heaven. It's going to be a face-to-face encounter that's real and human, and that's a really high value to me, you know.
I don't know, dude. Could be a big giant mainframe up there,
and we're all just looking at our screens.
Big mainframe. No, there's definitely something to that. That's good of to orient it with the value structure, because even, I mean, the simpler one is to talk about it in sports, and it is kind of like, okay, yeah, I would, and it is what it is in some ways. Obviously, they're not asking us what to do to evolve the game of baseball or basketball,
even though they should be.
Yeah. I mean, well, I would assume they listen, but they just haven't asked us. So here's your answer. But there's something to that of like, yeah, you like value a certain like artistry in the game, or even like the human element of umpires or referees. It gives you something to talk about and like complain about with your friends, which is, that's like really good, you know. And at least to me, like if you put a value structure in it, I'd rather have that of like, you know, having something to talk about and like an opportunity for like fraternity and community with my family or friends to talk about something and enjoy this thing, not as the end all be all, rather than yeah, like all kind of humanness has been taken out of it, and you're just pretty much watching like who can like specialize and play Moneyball the best.
Yeah. At some point, like, when are you going to replace the players? Because like the players are not perfect. Obviously, like there's some value that you will never sacrifice. Otherwise, it ceases to be a game. You know, you're just watching an algorithm play out.
Right. And then it no longer becomes art. It's like, well, why don't we just have computers make paintings? They would be perfect, but they would be weird, and maybe they wouldn't be perfect. I don't know.
There was an interesting AI thing that they figured out. They plugged in like a bunch of Nirvana into this AI song machine, and it wrote a new Kurt Cobain song, and it really sounds like Nirvana, and the lyrics and everything. I don't know if you Google it, like AI Nirvana song. It sounds like something off of a Nirvana album, but it's completely made up by a computer. It's
totally computer generated. Well, maybe computers will be better artists than us. I don't know. Forget what I said. No, but there is the hierarchy of values. It is. Well, I mean, I go back to the DMAX stuff, especially when it comes to games and art, that the purpose of a thing is beautiful if it's revealing it's what it is. And there has to be a human element to these things for them to be what they are. And, you know, I think in the liturgy as well, like there are objective standards of what the church has said that the liturgy is, and what Christ has revealed and in tradition has supported and developed baseball, I don't know how you would define baseball. Like I don't know what baseball is in the same way that I know what the liturgy is. But that's also good because the liturgy, it gives us some a telos that allows us to know like what we're aiming at, what it's supposed to look like. And I mean, this is like, I guess, specifically to the tech use within the liturgy. I did remember there's a church in Chicago that was built around, I guess it was like the development of the light bulb. And they had, it's a huge, big, beautiful church. And I think all of their chandeliers are open. They're not covered light bulbs. And there's like little light bulbs all around the church because they wanted to show off this like brand new technology that they had.
That might be Holy Family down the street from me. That's like all light bulbs all over the
like
high
Christmas
altar.
lights. Yeah. And I guess at the time they're like, boom, baby, we are cutting edge. Okay. But I mean, that's okay. But there's a big component to the liturgy this side of death when we behold the face of God that's massively mysterious. And technology can help to reveal that mystery. But then again, it gets to like the scientism thing where it's like, no, I want to know what every word is so that I can like propositionally compute and analyze.
Yeah. Like what does participation mean?
In the liturgy. And you're like, no, it's okay to get caught up in the mystery of something that you don't fully understand.
Right. Which
may actually be closer to the reality of what we think the liturgy is getting caught up into the other with others. And technology can totally help to do that and can reveal that and invite you into that. But I don't know if the projector seems like the scientific approach to try and do that.
And I know we're running out of time here, but I think that it's probably a generational thing. And in another few years, everybody around will have grown up in a world that is haunted and infected with too many screens. And it's a disembodied world. And one of the highest values that the liturgy will offer people on a human level is that this is a place where you have to like look people in the eye and take out your earbuds and actually hear the voice of the person next to you singing badly. That this is not filtered through auto-tune at all. Like the messiness and the fleshiness of a human experience like the liturgy, as much as it is also an image of heaven. And the Spirit is breathing and speaking. The human voice and response and face is so obviously integral that all of the disembodiedness of virtual reality just has to go. Like no one will find that inspiring. I think it's a certain naivete. That's my opinion. I don't want to be disrespectful, but of like, oh, why don't we just put screens? People love screens. Let's put screens in the church. And you don't know what you're doing. Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing.
Father Michael Bremer of the Archdiocese of Atlanta says that we will never lose our jobs to robots. And he has said this for a long time, like from the first day of
when
seminary.
Robots were still like squeaky.
You're like, whoa, because we won't be able to get past, or robots won't be able to get past the lavabo. And then he would always go, I was just learning how to love. Every time I could set him up 50 times in a row and he would do that joke all the way through.
It does take me back to like 8 years ago listening to him tell that joke.
Yeah. I was just learning to love.
All right, dudes, I gotta go.
Good talk.